Three Legs Podcast. Your host,
Gotta look sharp.
Zach Dingee,
Tony Cappelletti,
where we share business tips, interview experts,
And travel the world.
This week on Two Dudes, Three Legs.
oh, you fuckers want to be famous.
Welcome back to the Two Dudes, Three Legs Podcast with your host, Zach Dingee.
Tony Cappelletti.
Today, we're sitting with Bick. He was a nightclub owner at 18 and a federal inmate by 21. We're going to find out how, what, why, and everything about it. So, Tony, go ahead.
So, we know a little bit of your story, right? You're arrested by the FBI, indicted on 15 charges by the age of 19, right? You go to jail for 3 years. You're back out, not jail, federal prison. You come back out. How has it been adjusting to life as an entrepreneur? Because you're not giving that up. You didn't even give it up when you were locked up, which is fucking impressive. But how has it been adjusting to life coming back out?
It was really interesting because like once I got out of prison, I was very gung-ho about getting back into like that field that got me into prison. So I was like, first day out, I do like this news article. So I was supposed to go right to the halfway house right when I got out of prison. And instead I go to my parents' house and I set up an interview with the News Times. And there I'm going talking about how I'm opening up a new nightclub and all the shit, which I wasn't really thinking about at the time, but they could have technically sent me back to prison to finish my sentence.
Just for that,
because I like deviated from the course. But they decided not to go that route.
Oh my God. Wait, so you said finish your sentence. Sorry.
So it would have been like I had 4 months left of my sentence.
Oh, okay. And they let you out.
But they let you out into the halfway house to like reintegrate into society.
For good behavior or because you made the best cheesecakes in town?
So in the federal prison system, you get good time per each year. You get like 40 days for every year, something like that for every year you serve. So my full 3-year term would have been October of 2019. With good time, that was May of 2019. I got out in January of 2019. So that was the halfway house time. So say they decided to violate me, I would have had to stay back into the federal prison camp until May.
So wait, what did you do then? Where did you go the day you got out?
So
go with
the
that
day
again?
I go out, I fly into New Haven, and then my dad picks me up, and we go to my house, and I do an interview with the News Times to like market that I'm back and getting back into the nightclub
Daddy's
business.
back.
Yeah, all this stuff, take some photos, and the dumbest thing I could have ever done was I didn't take my prison clothes off. I had like the gray jumpsuit still on. I was just like so determined to like show off my new physical look because I came out like a lot fitter than what I went into. And so I did the interview and they see it and they like the next day at the halfway house, they like bring a copy of the newspaper to me and they're like, do you see this? And I'm sitting there trying to say, well, that was from years ago. They're like, this is the same outfit you came out of the prison with.
Yo, what? That's crazy.
So they let it slide. But yeah, I had like this mentality of wanting to get back into it. And things were so different. Like the world was so different when you leave, almost 3 years prior and then you come back. It's a whole different spot. Like the biggest change for me was smart TVs. That was not a thing before I went into prison. So I'm fiddling around with it when I went on like home confinement. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Because we didn't have like a smart TV before. It was like the, the Amazon Drive thing or whatever.
The Fire Stick.
The Fire Stick, yeah.
Now they're
we
built
had that.
Into the TV.
Yep. And TV prices were like ridiculously cheaper. So that was like weird. And then just even like getting back into like dating and stuff. I never used like Tinder or anything like before prison. Yeah. So being on that was super weird. And then also having like kind of like a known persona in Danbury. So that was like another interesting factor about it too.
Yeah. When people ask you, when they're like you go on a date or you're hanging out with buddies, new friends you meet, and you're like, so what have you been doing the last couple of years of your life? Like tell me your story or whatever. Do you say like instantly, yeah, I went to jail? Or do you kind of hide it a little bit until you get to talk a little bit more?
I mean, honestly, everyone like I meet in town or even Connecticut, just they know of me or they know the story. And even girls that don't know me, they go to Google me and they're so fascinated with the prison thing. They don't care about anything else, like what the crime was. It's never about the crime. It's never about anything. It's what was prison like? That's question one. And two, did you have sex with anyone in prison?
Do you get more women because you went to prison, you think?
It's got to be.
Do they like love it, like in a good way?
I think they like the bad boy aspect of it. But there's also, like for every girl that's interested, there's also a girl that's not. not. Like there's a lot of hesitancy.
Two sides
like
of the
with
sword.
that. Yeah.
Always, right.
Always.
Right.
So I think it's definitely difficult for some people to grasp that. Especially like I'm not the type that you bring home to the parents and say, hey, mom and dad, this guy went to prison, but I like him. Like it's just like a complicated scenario.
Yeah. How many tattoos did you get in prison? Because you didn't have any of those before. Did you get them when you got out or inside prison?
I didn't get any tattoos in prison. I
No.
almost did it.
So.
Only because like they use real ink and everything there, but I was just thrown off by like the whole needle aspect.
Yeah.
But they do it really legit. Like they get the ink smuggled in from over the walls, so it's like it's a nice can of ink. And but the gun itself, the tattoo gun, is like made with like random parts and rubber bands.
Fuck.
And it looks really
They can
ghetto.
just
Yo,
smuggle shit.
Motherfuckers are innovators
I
in
see
jail.
like these videos online of these guys taking pictures and shit while they're in jail. I saw a picture of you while you were in jail. Who the fuck took that picture? Who's got the camera phone in there?
So that we were on like Snapchat and we were doing lives. Like that's a big thing. If you go on TikTok, like Prison Talk, you see all these videos
Prison Talk,
of guys.
bro.
But the funniest thing is they'll post one video and you don't hear from them again because they get caught after that.
Oh my
Yeah. Stupid.
Yeah, I saw videos on TikTok of guys like cooking and throwing the food down and partying, but that was like our thing. We would do like lives and Snapchat. I had like a really big Snapchat platform at that point, with the old Tuxedo Junction like handle for Snapchat. So I was getting like thousands of views.
That's crazy because people know your story and they're like, holy shit, we can follow up and watch what's going on with him.
Exactly.
And did that give you the idea to like, you know, you're in prison and you're thinking, what am I going to do when I get out of here? That probably gave you the idea to, okay, people want to hear more about this story. I want to monetize this. Is that what gave you the idea to like, you know, come out and share your story?
I think what gave me the idea was I read Jordan Belfort's books, and that kind of like inspired me. Like I studied like The Wolf of Wall Street. He had like 3 books, and I read them all. I read another one of them twice, and that like just got me thinking. Like I started working on a book in prison, and I'm like, okay, I have something like really interesting here. This is what I can use to get back to even, make things right, pay everyone back. And then I started reading a bunch of memoirs. Like I read all these celebrity memoirs, as many as I could find, and whatever wasn't in the library, my parents would send me in books. And I would just like kind of like understand their writing style and these just different stories. And that like fascinated me, that like you could actually monetize someone's story, because I had no idea that was like a thing before.
So that's what sparked it, was the reading in prison.
Exactly. I would definitely say the reading in
And so
prison.
that begs the question, you're obviously writing a book.
I was writing a book in prison, and I wrote like 3 or 4 chapters, and then I was like emailing a lot of agents and stuff when I got out. That's what I was focusing on like that first year, and probably emailed like 200 agents, heard back from a few, and a lot of the feedback was like I wasn't relevant. So like my situation had happened years earlier. So like there was a Vice article years earlier in 2015. This was 2019 now, so no one was interested. So that kind of like put things on the back burner. And then ever since then, like I became a little bit more relevant, like with the HBO doc and the Vice doc, and now, my TikTok and everything. So maybe eventually a book, but the way I look at it now, TikTok and social media is my book. And then that's what I use to convert into a TV show or a movie. Whereas I don't necessarily know if I need to go write a book right now. And I think the engagement right now, like a 27-year-old person, someone that's my age, I think gets more entertainment out of my personality on TikTok than going to sit and write a book that may or may not be written by me and can't really understand my personality.
Right.
It's the same play Jordan Belfort did. He made the movie, and then now he is like he made a lot of money doing his business, but he wasn't popping until he made the movie. And now because of the movie and because of Leonardo DiCaprio, now he's like the guy.
Right.
And then he started selling books and monetizing into podcasts and everything. But
I had no idea who he was like before. I don't think anyone in like my age group did until that movie came out in 2013. No one had any idea.
You ready for this? Yeah. Our sales director grew up selling door to door with Jordan Belfort.
Really?
If you go back and listen to some of his podcasts, I don't know exactly which one it was, but they talk about how they used to go to Jones Beach and sell ice creams, and they talk about how he used to sell seafood at the back of his truck.
The seafood
My
truck.
sales director worked at that same company and sold seafood at the back of the truck together with Jordan Belfort at like 18, 19. I'll tell you a funny story. Jordan Belfort has always been a hardcore salesman. Jordan Belfort, I'm not going to say my sales director's name, but my sales director, Jordan Belfort, went and took the guy's truck, my sales director, went out to all his customers, did his route, and was like, hey guys, XYZ, he died. So I'm just trying to sell his truck and get money for the funeral. And he literally sold his entire truck and then went back. And my sales director, Jordan thought it was funny. My sales director didn't think it was funny, and it was a whole issue.
Yeah, because the way he found out, he showed up at this lady's house who he was selling meat to, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's you! I thought you were dead." It's like,
that
what?
Is wild.
Yo, Belford's a real wolf, bro.
Yeah.
Yo, he's OD.
But also to touch back on you writing your story, I feel like your story is going to get really good when you hit that level of success that I believe you're going to hit, because you're driven in a different way, bro. Like watching your TikToks and stuff and hearing about you hustling in prison, like you got something in you that's never going to die. So I think you're right. The story isn't there yet, but I think it will be when you hit that level of success you're looking for, because then it's going to be like, you know, they're saying you're not relevant right now. Well, what will bring you relevance again is your validity when you make that money that I know you're going to, because you're sick with something. Like you're sick as an entrepreneur, bro.
Ian,
you got some balls on you.
So in high school, obviously you started the business. Who were you in middle school? Like what kind of kid were you? Were you always an entrepreneur hustling shit in middle school, or were you an athlete? Were you just a regular kid in middle school?
So this is actually like the interesting part of the story, because this is what like sets up everything that happens in the future. Mm-hmm. In middle school, like I was not popular whatsoever. I had just came back from private school. I went to private school in elementary school because I was bullied for being like the chubby, nerdy looking kid. And then I got to middle school, came back for 7th and 8th grade so I can kind of like integrate back into like the social crowd before high school. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know where like I fit in. Everyone was in like the Hollister, Abercrombie era or the like the skater era. And so my body type was not the Hollister type. So I fit in with the skaters, but I couldn't skate for shit. And I walked around with a skateboard in my hand that I did not know how to ride. Sometimes I would wear Heelys, like remember the roller skater thing? I had a pair of those. And I had bleached blonde like highlights in my hair because I thought that would look cool. At long hair, and I looked like a chipmunk or a squirrel. And I would wear these baggy clothes, and I was just trying to fit in. At one point, I sold weed for a little bit just to like be cool. I hung out with like the shady group of kids. And that kind of like determined me to get popular in high school. So like the summer going into 8th grade into 9th grade, I lost the weight, went more preppy for like a preppy look. I was wearing like Ralph Lauren, polo shirts, stuff like that in high school. And then I really spent a lot of time trying to integrate with like the upperclassmen, because I realized like if I can integrate with the upperclassmen, that's when I'll gain like the popularity and start to become like known. And that, I think that desire to want to be popular is what like fueled me chasing like the success with the concerts and always like wanting to get bigger and bigger. And that was like ultimately the downfall too.
Right. Because the spark of it all was, what was it? Like there was a dance and the dance was whack or whatever. So you wanted to put on your own show, your own event, right?
Yeah. So I started raising money for a homeless shelter. That turned into selling bracelets. And then from there, I did a dance with it. And the night of the dance, I realized, okay, if I can get kids to pay X amount of dollars, I could make some money. And at this point in time, I'm throwing these massive house parties at my house. 200 to 300 kids every single weekend. I was
like Project.
Wait, you were doing that before the dance even happened. So
Project
we were doing
X.
Project X at my house every weekend. My parents were upstairs. Like
Thanks
the
for
whole
the invite,
time,
dude.
Yeah, it was crazy, and we live on a lake, so like people were taking out the boats, and like we had a trampoline in the yard, we had a fire pit, we set up like a bar down on the patio.
Age, how old are you?
I'm 15. This is when it first started. My first party was New Year's of beginning of sophomore year, and I was 15. And like I just got hooked, and it all has to do with like me wanting popularity, because it's like a drug.
Every party, say that.
Yeah, every party, every Facebook invite I sent out, because that was the big thing to promote back then. Yeah. Everyone hitting me up, and for me, it was never about the party itself. I hated the parties. I wasn't a drinker. I didn't smoke. It was the build up until the event, and the second the party's over, you lose that build up. No one's hitting you up. So therefore, you need to have the next one in place.
Chasing the dragon.
To chase that, yeah. And that's what I was doing.
It went from an insecurity, and then you basically you literally made it your own drug, which ended up being your own demise.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
we've all been in that
So
position.
crazy, yeah.
I threw house parties because I remember that.
That shit is it's fucking addicting. I mean, even now, like look at influencers and stuff, like with like TikTok and stuff. You have to like. I was doing an interview last week, and the guy was like, "Well, you're still kind of like the same person you were back then because you're still chasing popularity. Only this time you're using that to like build a platform and
yeah.
to do something good with it.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be there. Like the people that look for attention, like that's always going to be a thing. It's just how you turn that into something good.
Well, now you'll be rewarded duly for it.
I mean, we're all addiction-based human beings, though.
Yeah.
If you're not chasing business or attention, then they're addicted to watching Netflix, or they're addicted to their phone, or they're addicted to something. So there's nothing wrong with being addicted to trying to get attention if you're going to do something good with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. If you use your platform
That's how
for a
it's what
good
human
cause.
beings are.
Right.
It's what human beings biologically connect to things like that, you know?
Right.
We all have addictions. All right, so in prison, we talked about it before, but you've been a businessman since you were young. You're telling me you're putting on parties and shit. Were you charging people at 15?
So for the house parties, we just charge for red Solo cups to drink for the night,
knew it.
just so we can make our money
fucking
back. We
knew
made
it.
a little bit of money.
Yeah.
It wasn't much, but we'd have like upperclassmen with the fake IDs buy the liquor, and we would sell the Solo cups, and that was like our hustle. But I was working like a full-time job at that point. So, and all my other friends weren't working. So I always had money, and I was buying like the food or anything like that.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah, definitely don't try this out.
What was the biggest business lesson you learned in prison?
In prison. I mean, I think it's just you have to be. There's a couple things. One, you have to know who you're getting into business with. That's definitely a big takeaway from prison because there's guys like in one point I got myself in like a shady situation because this guy's like, and I've actually never told this story before, but this guy comes to me and he's like, "Hey, do you want to make some money?" It's perfectly legit, no problems, nothing. And at that point, I'm in prison bored and kind of like want some adrenaline to like make some money. And next thing I know, like these fucking drugs are getting shipped to my parents' house, these pills or something like that to try to get smuggled in the prison. And when my dad tells me this, I'm like, fucking send that shit back, return to sender. And so he does that. And then next thing I know, this guy's coming to me like, yo, dude didn't get the stuff back. Like all this crazy shit.
He says
Holy
it's
shit.
perfectly legit.
Yeah,
Shit.
I'm like,
You're
bro,
in
I did not
prison.
sign up for this. Like,
They didn't even tell you what the plan was?
nothing, no plan. And thank God, like this guy ended up getting like caught with a phone. So he went to the shoe. Like, I don't even know what the repercussions would have been. But it was just like so sketchy. And like that's like it's like you got to do your research. You got to know who you're getting into business with. That and just like straightforward honesty, which is like something I struggled with like before prison because I was never really honest.
Right.
Because I wanted to be popular and stuff. I didn't want to like show that my business failed or anything like that.
Right.
Yep.
In prison, it's like it's very honest. Like if you're caught in one lie, it's like your life is pretty much on the line. You don't want to lie about anything.
And the people who hold you accountable are the other cellmates, you're saying.
Pretty much, or anyone you're like in business with. It's like a college campus, pretty much, these lows. There's no like cells. It's 12-man rooms at the Fort Dix prison I was at, a low security prison. So picture like you're in a big unit and there's like 10 different units. Each unit has about 400 inmates. It's 3 floors and there's these 12-man rooms on each floor. And it's like an old army barracks. And the doors just open up and you can go in there into people's rooms. You move around. It's like this college experience. And in the bathroom, you have guys making hooch and whiskey and
How
everything.
do you not get caught? I don't get that.
It's one officer per each unit. And you
And
would
as
have a
long as he
lookout.
doesn't come in
Yep,
your
you would
fucking
have a
room, you're
lookout
good.
downstairs. So he's required to walk like every hour or whatever. Some cops are assholes, but other cops
Don't let you live a little.
let you live. So
Okay.
you would have a lookout downstairs and there's 2 staircases on either side of the building. So if the cop's walking this way, all the guys with the phones are going down the other staircase. It's like a cat and mouse game.
Wow.
And there's windows like facing the prison yard. So if they're going to raid the place, because sometimes they'll do raids and they'll send like 10 guards in at a time, you could see what's going on. So you have plenty of time to stash everything.
Okay.
But
It wasn't a very well-run prison. What the hell?
no, it's kind of a joke, like the low security prisons. But you got guys in one room doing the gambling. You got another guy, playing cards or whatever.
and
then,
this is federal lockup, though. So
Yeah.
are you in fear for your life at some point? Like when you're in there? Are you worried about someone coming up and shanking the fuck out of you? Or if you play the game right and you don't fuck with anybody, you're okay.
I think if you play the game right, you're okay. Like it's all like I learned a lot of life skills and like people skills in prison because you have to read people and you got to kind of figure out who you could get away with stuff with and who you can't and who you kind of got to like appease and go about it. With me, like I have the good personality where I can make friendly with certain people and they kind of like had my back. But there were like difficult situations where like guys wanted to beat the shit out of me because they didn't like a white guy moving around the way I did. Like I was trying to get involved with everything, but I was way out of my realm of what I should have been in.
Right.
You know, and that got me into like some really dicey situations because like I want to be a part of the gambling. I want to do the sports book. I want to like, because I was just trying to make some money. Like I didn't need the money, but that like addiction in me to be involved in something got me into stuff that I didn't need to be a part of.
I think your biggest factor that makes you so special at this is resourcefulness. I think you have ridiculous skills to just find whatever you need to find at the time. Like you're 17, 18 years old and you had a Wells Fargo account with investors that could have given you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
You go to jail and you're this white boy who is a nobody, and then you go into jail and now you're connected with these people you're making money on it. Like your ability to be resourceful was, I don't know if that's always been in you, but it seems like it. You know what I mean? That's special to me. Not a lot of people can do that.
You're
you know?
a smart
I think
guy.
it was also, it wasn't a good thing at the same time because like the more resourceful I got, the longer this went on. So like in times where like, say I owed an investor $120,000 and for me to be able to go to the casino and magically win this money, like to pay the person back, like it should have just ended right there if I didn't win the money, but instead I win them. Like, for instance, there was always another situation to get me bailed out of a previous one.
Yeah.
Right.
So whether that was just because I was a lucky son of a bitch or my drive or whatever it was, but there was always something because I kept looking for that door to close the other door.
Right. But and you did, you know, from me watching your story, you found your way out of a lot of situations, but there had to be nights where you went to bed like 80K in the hole. What was that like? How the fuck do you go to sleep when you owe people so much? Like I wouldn't be able to.
I think towards the end, I couldn't really sleep at all. Like I was at my heaviest. I was like almost 300 pounds. I was eating fast food like every day. And it was like the weight of running the club, owing all this money, having dangerous figures or individuals like after me too. Like I was just trying to keep everything together. There was not a single point in the day where my phone would not ring. And I
you
would
gotta
put
be stressed out of your
stress
mind.
was really through the roof. Like I was in a bad mental state.
I don't know
like,
how you still got
really
hair, dude.
bad.
Were you doing drugs at the time, or
Never
how were you
got-
coping with this?
I think I was just like, I'm a very like motivational person.
Okay.
Whereas like I believed heavily in you have to fail to succeed. And like, that's what kept me going. Like I was like, okay, I did all this failure. Tuxedo Junction, the nightclub I was running, was my second act. I'm going to make this work or I'm going to die trying. Oh. And I literally had to be removed by the police from the club when I got sent to
Holy
jail.
shit.
Otherwise, I'd still be running it up until probably like COVID happened.
Yeah.
But
So
there
you're
was like nothing
trusting
stopping
the process is that's what you have. You just have faith that it's shitty right now, but you're going to make it through.
And that's what keeps me going today. Like I wake up and I think like, okay, I went through all this crazy shit. I survived it. And now I have this amazing story. And it's like, it's ironic. Like I was chasing success for so long, trying to build this business. And the thing that's going to bring me that is the story itself of me chasing it.
Right.
Which is like super interesting about it.
That is very interesting.
All right, so let's get into the business aspect of Tuxedo Junction. It is, when you run a nightclub, I always tell the people that talk to me about business, I always say there's one business I'd never get in. That's the restaurant industry. Same nightclub, restaurant, same shit to me.
Yep.
It's a very cash-heavy business, very slim margins, very difficult, very like nonstop. It's long hours, late nights. It's like basically everything you don't want. So why in the beginning? I know you did the event. You had the event for the hell was it? The school.
Yeah.
And you did the dance.
Yep.
Why the nightclub industry? Like why not just holding events or doing something else? Why'd you want to own a nightclub?
So I think a lot of it was just like luck one day. What happened was I was doing the teen nights at this club, Tuxedo Junction, which was like a famous rock club in Connecticut and in Danbury. And when that eventually died out, that's when I moved to the bigger concerts and I raised the money and lose the money. And that's what got me into the trouble.
Yep.
And then one day I see like a news article in the paper saying, Tuxedo Junction was for sale and it was going out of business, and I was still friendly with the owner at the time. So I call him up. I was in Vegas on like a family trip, and I see this article, and he said, listen, like, we're closing the doors, but if you come up with this amount of money, which was like $20,000 to do the liquor license and some past bills and stuff, I could essentially own a nightclub with him. And he would stay on board as like an advisor, and we would try it for 6 months. And so in my mind, I'm 18 years old. I had success in that club before, and this was just like the front room aspect of it. And why not? Like, what kid wouldn't want to own a nightclub? The problem was that I was like thinking way too big, and I dump $100,000 into like renovating the front room of this. So it was like $120,000 investment in an area that like is pretty shitty. And also all these contractors were taking advantage of me.
And that was the 120 grand wasn't your money. That was also
Investor
investors.
money, yeah.
So right from the jump, you went in the hole 100 grand.
Yep. On
Or
this
120.
nightclub. Yeah.
And looking back, did you even need to do those renovations? Like,
no, not really. What I look back on now, knowing everything I know now, had I taken that investor money and put it into the idea of Tuxedo Junction with the whole entire building and doing the EDM acts that I was able to do, we wouldn't be here right now. I'd be like a success story, and the club would be great, and I probably would have ended up selling the club for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Everything would have been good, because that business model itself that I did years later was super successful. I could just never get ahead because of all the past debt.
shit.
Wow.
So that's what happened
big
with that.
right
Yeah.
there.
That's
That's
crazy.
huge, because the sequencing of what you're saying right there, like literally your first move you made in the nightclub, the debt you went into to redo the room, which you should have never done. If you didn't do that move, you just said you'd basically be a success, but because you did that move,
Yep.
that's it. That was everything.
I should have just took over the back room, like the whole space, but I didn't. So that folds 6 months later. And then by that point, that's when I'm like 1.2 million in the hole with the interest, because there was like all this inflated interest on all the loans. Investigation starts, and that's when I get the idea to go back to what I initially started in the big room, Tuxedo Junction. And that's when I reopen it and start from scratch. Only this time with the FBI after me and $1.2 million of debt floating above me.
Jesus.
Was there ever a time you owned that business that you were cash positive, net positive?
Yeah, the business itself, like the first year we took a little bit of a loss, but then the second year of business we grossed over $500,000 and there was profit on it. But the money was just really like mishandled because there was so much back stuff. Every day I would have like an investor or whatever call me from the past saying, oh, I need this or I need that. So I'm trying to run this business, but I can't because of the past. I should have cut off the past completely, separate it, and then start fresh there. Because my goal with Tuxedos was just to sell the brand, build it up, sell it, pay everyone back. Unfortunately, I ran out of time at the end. I feel like if I had like one more good year on it, I could have done it, because the socials were growing. I was already almost 2 years into the business. The whole industry knew of the club by that point. Like, it was a successful club, but I just couldn't get ahead.
One more month. Fucking
I'd say
FBI.
one more year and getting a liquor license on it. And now we were profitable without a liquor license. Never had one on it for when we were doing this big club. But we would make crazy money off of water, soda, Red Bull, all that shit. Like, it just goes to show like what some of these venues make, like movie theaters and stuff. The markups are on that. It's better than liquor. I did a Steve Aoki show and I made 10 grand off of waters and Gatorade and Red Bull and candy.
Shit.
Like, that's just crazy.
Was your bigger problem mismanaging money or debt, bad debt?
For the club, it was both. Like, I think it was like a lot of not realizing when to pick my battles or what to pay, what I could float. So like there would be instances where like I owed an artist money and I was so stressed out that I needed to get them money on this day that I would go to extreme measures to try to get that money, only for that measure to not work out. And I'd be more in the hole, and then come to find out that I could have had a little bit more time to pay them and it all would have worked out. So like I would use ticketing money from a future show to pay off that one, where if I just waited a couple weeks to do whatever, then it would have been a little bit different.
Dude, you went from getting into business. Basically, the first business you got into was literally the hardest business in the world to get into. I don't even know if you would have went back, if you go back today, Do you think 100% you could be successful in that realm?
I think so.
business?
I think if I
he's
knowing
learned everything not to do
knowing
now.
everything, like I was good at running the club. Like I was great with event management. I know how to produce. Like that's why I hate when people compare me to Billy McFarland, because the guy from Firefest, because that guy did not know how to produce an event. So
When you say that name, I imagine a piece of cheese and 2 pieces of bread.
but that's what, like, people compare me to him all the time, especially now that he's going on TikTok and shit and trying to launch this like new event or new festival.
Is he?
Yeah, he put out this thing and he just did an interview with Good Morning America, like this whole thing saying, like, almost crying that he's so sorry, this and that. But then he launched on TikTok an event thing and it's like a treasure map and he's sending people to the Bahamas, like all this crazy shit. But at the end of the day, he didn't throw an event. Whereas
Right.
like my story, like I threw successful events. It's just my downfall was like how I managed the money aspect of it.
Low key, it might be incredible if you link up with him and you two put a fucking event on together.
With Anna Delvey too. The 3 of us and the Tinder swindler.
Oh my God.
That would be insane. I'd buy a ticket. I might even invest.
Yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of the mismanagement of money, I want to hear about this because I can't picture it being any better than what I imagine. You guys had a Wells Fargo account. There's no fucking way a bunch of 19-year-old kids are writing down or keeping track of any of the money, where it's supposed to be going, the taxes you're supposed to be paying on the money you're making. Are you doing books at all? Like, how are you even managing this money with a bunch of teenagers?
So the books got done once the investigation started a year later.
I fucking knew it.
And I'm backtracking. I had all the records, like all the receipts and everything. I kept all that. And I just figured
Okay.
eventually I would do it because my plan was once I made the money, I would go sit down with an accountant. But the money is just going into the Wells Fargo bank account. And it's getting, like, me and my business partner had business debit cards, and it was just getting
So at
spent.
least you know it's being tracked. You're
Yeah,
tracking it as
it was
you're
being
going.
tracked.
But
I
are you
tried to
paying
keep it legit.
taxes year after year, or
Nothing.
like?
I mean, we were only in business a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We had like an entertainment LLC before that, but that like folded within a year too. So that was like never on the radar.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just money in, money out, no accounting.
It's crazy.
And the bank tellers are looking at us like fucking crazy because I'm walking in with like a suit and tie on, not even 18 years old, depositing checks for 6 figures.
Oh
And
my God.
What? So for the people who don't know, what was the actual reason you got indicted? What was the charge?
The charges.
So
you
the
were
charges were wire fraud, money laundering, and making a false statement. Now, the wire fraud is basically like if you gave me $20,000 and I said it was for electronics, but I then took that money and put it into concerts. That's the wire fraud because you're using a check or an interstate wire to do that transaction. And it's all wire fraud's based on like lying and bad intent. Money laundering is not what you think of when you hear the term money laundering. I wasn't moving money around for like drug dealers, which I technically was, but that's not what I was charged for. It's that I took your money and say it went into my bank account and I bought the pair of jet skis. They're saying that I'm hiding stolen money by purchasing jet skis. So that's like the wire fraud charge. And then making a false statement was when I met with postal inspectors. I was just trying to clear.
What's a postal inspector?
That's a hell of a question. I didn't know what
I imagine like some guy checking mailboxes. What the fuck?
So the post office actually has like a division of like armed agents, kind of like, and I didn't know the IRS has armed agents too. So they have a criminal division that investigates mostly mail fraud, but they can investigate wire fraud. They were brought in on my case because they suspected mail fraud, which there wasn't. Mail fraud would be like if I sent you guys investor statements through the mail. That would then turn into a mail fraud case.
Whoa.
Which people do that.
so many
with.
levels.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
All right.
a lot.
So finish on the last thing you were indicted on. I interrupted you.
Which is making a false statement, met with postal inspectors, like innocently without a lawyer, trying to just clear everything up. And those guys took advantage of me, like real bad. They left with saying, just talk to us. Don't talk to a lawyer. We're going to get you through everything. We're your friends. And then I knew something was off. I called the lawyer that day and he said, don't ever talk to them again. And these guys are blowing up my phone. They're like, when can we meet? Again, can we get these documents? I said, you got to talk to my lawyer. And from that second, they were pissed.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Can I ask one question? Ian, do you feel like you were guilty?
I think like for the longest time, I thought I was like completely innocent only because I didn't have the intent to defraud anyone. I think like I'm definitely guilty of, mishandling money, but I'm always going to like hold firm that I wasn't guilty of setting out to scam anyone from the, but I definitely am guilty of like lying and trying to cover it up, which then essentially turns into like a fraudulent part.
Right.
But I'm always like, when I defend about like when people say, oh, like you scammed your friends or you stole money, that's where I get defensive, only because that's not what I set out to do.
Right.
So I try to differentiate that, but it did turn into like a scam unknowingly and just like accidentally. So that's like the part I'll admit that I'm guilty about.
You never had malintent.
Yeah, never.
So then in the end, do you think jail was justice for you?
I think definitely the way, like, because I pissed off the court so much with going out of state, like to gamble.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's like
So-
you cheated on your girl, but you didn't really mean
nuts.
it.
I think so there's multiple ways to look at it. One, like jail was definitely good so I can, reform myself and like physically and mentally. Like jail changed me as a person.
Yeah.
I don't think it sets like a good, like to reform someone in general. It's tough because I was just like around, if I was truly a criminal, I would have picked up so much things in jail because you're around all these other criminals and you're learning all these things like scams or different types of hustles and stuff.
Right, that's how you become institutionalized.
Exactly.
And you don't seem to have become that at all.
No, that wasn't a desire. Like I had so many guys that I was in prison with hit me up all the time. They're like, yo, I got a credit card scam or I got this and I got that. And there's just like no interest in that whatsoever. But it was good for me to go to prison just to get like that aspect of life. I think like the sentence itself was a little bit on the longer side. I don't think I necessarily needed to go for 3 years. I think I probably would have learned what I did in like a year and a day.
Yeah.
Or a year and a half, but it is what it is at that point. My lawyer was convinced I probably only would have got just house arrest had I not pissed off the judge so
Really?
bad. Yeah, so I was actually facing 7 to 9 years in prison. That was the guidelines. The judge departed down about 50% because of my age. And I went to trial and he understood like the whole case. But I get their point of view. They couldn't just let it slide that I was deliberately like bucking the court's order. And in my defense, like that's what kept the club going because that's what I believed in. But they didn't see that because it wasn't successful. But I feel like had it been successful and I was able to pay everyone back, it would have came out differently.
When you say you pissed off the judge so much, what'd you do? Like,
I
why'd
think
you
there's
piss
a
off the
I
judge
think
so
there's a
much?
list here.
Yeah.
There is a long list. So it really goes back to when I first got indicted. One of the conditions of my bail was I was banned from social media. The government came up with this elaborate story that I would use social media to contact witnesses. That wasn't the case. They just wanted me to not have success with running the club. So I go to court like once a month because they're trying to revoke my bond because I keep using social media and finding loopholes. Like I changed my name to my first name and then my middle name and all this shit. And my friends from Danbury that are hating on me are reporting it and all this shit. But every time the judges always ruled in my favor, the magistrate judge and the regular trial judge, because they were giving me a chance. But while this is going on, I'm sneaking out of state to gamble. And so when they eventually found out about that, they looked at it as the court's given you so many chances and you went off and you did this.
And you're gambling to make back money you've lost to keep you floating.
Yeah, I'm gambling for cash flow because at this club, I was only open twice a month, 3 times a month, but there were still regular bills. So you have the expenses of that night, like bringing in the production and everything, because we didn't own anything. It was just an empty shell. And then your monthly expenses of your electric, your taxes.
You got a ton of overhead.
Yeah, your rent, everything like that. So it wasn't like I needed more. And then I just started learning about like renting the venue out a year and a half into it. And I
Oh
could
my
get like
God.
10 grand for someone to rent the venue. But I wasn't doing that in the beginning because that wasn't my mindset. So it was just things like that. I had no source of cash flow.
Why did they start looking for you? Like, what set it off? Because, listen, 99.9% of businesses do something illegal. Like, even if it's just like they write a check for $1,000 and they fucking put it in their personal bank account instead of their business bank account. Everyone's going to do shit to get under the radar, to not pay taxes or to just find a loophole. Why did they start looking?
what was
you
the
only
spark?
owned it for a year.
What was the spark and how the fuck was it the FBI?
Yeah, like you went from not being looked at to fucking
It
the top
escalated
guy.
real quickly. So December of 2013, that's like when all of the big concerts at like the arenas and stuff had completely failed. And with the interest on everyone, that's like that $1.2 million figure. I go to our family lawyer and I tell him this whole situation. This is the first time I ever sat down with anyone and said the shit I was in. Because at that point, there was no more loans.
So you came clean for the first time to
Yeah,
a lawyer.
To a lawyer. Told him the whole thing.
That must have probably felt a little good.
It felt good, but I thought he was going to help me. And instead, this is what throws the gasoline on a very big fire.
Oh, God.
And he says, this is what we're going to do. We're going to restructure this debt, and we're going to renegotiate it, and then we'll figure out a payment plan with that. Which, in hindsight, was a great idea if we were dealing with a corporation and like adult investors. Instead, we're dealing with about 20 people. The majority of them are kids. So how are they going to react to getting a letter saying you're not owed anything and we're reanalyzing like the business? So he sends out these letters to all these kid investors and the adults too, but the adults were like kind of waiting to see how everything played out. The kids, on the other hand, who are thinking they're owed thousands of dollars with all the interest, are saying he's fucking us over. We're going to the cops. That was their first instinct. They go to the cops. One of the kids had invested $250,000 into concerts. He had won money from a lawsuit. And he goes to the cops, these detectives, and the cops, when they see a figure of $250,000, they're thinking, okay, this is a huge scam. There's got to be more of those investors. Come to find out in their investigation, there was only one investor with $250,000, and the rest were like small fish, and it added up to less than $500,000 out-of-pocket loss. So that's how the investigation starts, just locally. Then they like escalated it to the state's attorney. State's attorney just thought it was like a civil case, not really a criminal case. This detective, like in every movie, you have like that one antagonist, like in Wolf of Wall Street.
I was going to ask who's your antagonist.
That was this guy. This guy saw it through to the end, got it, like whatever connections he had.
Is this the Silver Fox?
No, the Silver Fox is with the feds. This is Detective Brooks. He's like a couple years away at that point from retiring. And this is like the case of his lifetime.
He's got it out for you.
Yeah, this is the biggest case of his career, and he's after me. It was so bad that when I actually got indicted, they had me sitting in the cold in handcuffs on the sidewalk outside my house for 15 minutes just so this guy could drive in the snow to say he got me. Say, do you remember me? Yeah, it was like a scene literally out of a movie.
So that was like
he went to every court thing, and I feel like he was secretly pissed because they sidelined him. He didn't testify at trial. He wasn't like at the prosecutor's table because once it becomes a federal case, it's like fuck the state.
Yeah.
So he was the one that had that driving push. Had it just been a state case, I probably would have got just probation and it would have been settled, maybe even civilly, because that's all it really like should have been looking back on it. But he got it to the Fed level. The Feds took over, and it just, at that point, once the Feds are committed, they're committed. There's no going back.
What a story.
Seems like
is.
you either have really, really, really good luck or the shittiest shit luck in the world.
Well,
There's
depending
no
on
in
how
between for you.
depending on how this turns out, then we
Oh
could,
yeah, well I'm just saying
You got
throughout
many
this
years
story,
left.
the highs are high and the lows are fucking low.
everything was just like so excessive, like it was meant to be like a movie. Like
Right.
just the amount of craziness that it wasn't just like it could have just stopped at the local police, no trial, nothing. Okay, the story ends there. It's not that fascinating. Instead, everything is fucking bigger and bigger, like it's larger than life. But that was my personality at the time too.
Right.
Like day I got indicted, my lawyer says, "Don't talk to the press, don't do anything." I get a voicemail from NBC, and I'm like, "Come on over to the club."
Shut up, bro.
They were not happy about that.
No
and I'm like
way.
filming this whole scene of me like painting the club. It's like 9:00 at night. And the NBC's with their whole crew inside the club. And I'm just whatever I can because that was my persona. It was like larger than life.
Right.
Everything has to be bucking the system. Everything has to be bigger. And I pissed a lot of people off, going about it that way. But that's like what makes the story even more interesting, like the absurdity of it.
Right.
So it's fair to say you're pro-government?
Guy's got an issue with authority.
I had a big issue with authority.
I
That's
want to
like
know about the hard money lenders.
Okay.
I the
the drug
correct
dealers?
me if I'm wrong, but you're meeting up with these guys who are just into bad shit, and you're borrowing money from them at what interest rate? Did I hear you say you borrowed $20,000 or was it $30,000 and you had 1 week to pay it back in full at $50,000?
So I had like it was like 21 days, but yeah, I had
21 days.
that guy was
What's
just,
the percent on that money?
it's a lot. It's like
You need a
68.
loan, bro?
It's something crazy.
I got some like
No, I don't ever want to borrow money from someone again. I'll borrow from a bank before I go to you. Sorry. I'll take it from the bank.
Probably smart, but I have cash on hand if you need it.
Okay, thank you.
Let me know.
Good to know. Bryce is going to be your enforcer when I don't pay. He's going to be showing up at my door. Honestly, if I had to not owe money to anyone, it wouldn't be to him because I know he would be like going after it like at any cost.
Yeah.
No, he's got like that scary aspect of him.
Bryce?
No,
Yeah.
Never in my life.
Have you
Gangster.
been watching his
Think that.
reels lately? He has like that persona where he's like a secret hitman or something.
You guys should learn a little thing.
Don't expose
Bryce.
Bryce, bro.
Yeah, he's like
but
a
I don't
deadly
play about
assassin.
money though. Money is
Facts. Facts.
Yeah, he sends me an invoice. I'm paying that shit right away. There ain't no fucking with Bryce.
I let my shit relapse all the time. He sends a reminder every hour.
Hey, you got to give the 30. I said yes to this interview yesterday, and 2 minutes later, I got the invite in the email.
He's
Yo,
no
he's
joke,
a
man.
businessman.
This is
I
why
know.
he's the man. This is why we work with him. All right, so you said before, and it just kind of slipped over, and I feel like nobody talked about it. You had 20 investors that were all kids at one point. So you went and had all these investors how many total investors did you have? Like, what was the most?
Probably the most was like 30, and that was like a mix.
You
And
had
that doesn't count the
30
shady
total.
figures because they never made it into like the court case or anything. I defended those guys to the end. I wasn't going to drop any names.
That alone is like enough to kill someone. Like the stress to have 30 different people that you owe money to. And what did it range from? The lowest to the highest?
Lowest was like 1,000 out of pocket to the highest like 300,000 out of pocket. But the thing that really inflated everything was the interest because I was promising people a 50% rate of return.
Holy shit. Now, I still want to hear about these shady guys you borrowed money
So
from.
the shady guys, like in my first round of investments, because like throughout this whole story, there's different rounds of investments, different investors. Like that's what like is a fascinating aspect of the story is that there's so many characters, but none of them know each other. It's just like constant, like you could go in 20 different directions with this. So the first time like I had ever borrowed from shady people was one of the investors knew like drug dealers and they would give me like 5 or 10 grand. That was like something light, but I understood that concept of cash, like who I could go to if I ever needed cash. Paid them back, whatever. And then like a year down the road when I'm owning the nightclub, that's when I'm really introduced to like the heavy hitter drug dealers, biker gangs, guys that have access to legit street money.
Cash.
And yeah, like cash. And when I needed cash, those are the guys to go to. And it's like you show up to their house and they have like a duffel bag full of like wads and wads of cash, and it's all like drug money.
And what are their stipulations? I want this back at this date.
They make the
your
rules.
Broken fucking legs.
They
What do you
never
get?
threaten you in the beginning.
In the beginning.
Yeah, they play. So the guys I was dealing with, they're chill guys, but they're not like the mafia. They're not the cartel. Like that's a different ball game.
Okay.
These are like local people, you know, that will hurt you if you don't pay them back. But like, you know, they're still
They don't
legit.
want to do that.
Yeah, but it's not like kidnap your family and, you know, saw them off like cartel type shit. That stuff does happen, like the stuff that is in the movies.
Well, that's who I'm imagining you're with. But
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I mean, I was with like one ex-mobster, but he wasn't like associated like with the mob and stuff. But I think the interesting aspect of that whole thing was they came to realize I wasn't trying to intentionally fuck them. And they came to like me and enjoy being around me because they saw, one, I was hardworking, and two, like all the cards were stacked up against me.
yeah.
So I think I won them over in that respect, or else I would have ended up probably dead. Like if I was deliberately trying to fuck them.
Yeah.
But they felt for me and they gained like some feeling, and I had like that attention aspect. And that's, I think, what saved me in that whole thing.
Ian, what's the most violence you've experienced from a shady figure and or the wildest threat?
So there's two scenarios. First time I ever got threatened was with a gun at the club, and me and my business partner are there, and I'm ducking. Like I was the worst communicator ever. Now I overly communicate because of all this shit that happened. But when I was owing money bad, do not disturb or block on my phone were my biggest features. And I didn't answer anyone. And so they would come to the club, and one day I'm pulled up in the club and they point a gun first at my business partner because he was talking shit. He's like very slick or whatever. And he points a gun at him, and then he points a gun at me, and he's like, start answering your fucking phone. So that was like the first real threat.
Holy shit.
Then a couple of weeks go by or whatever, and I'm getting better at communicating, but I'm not paying anybody. So they drag me into
Yo.
they bring me in the basement of the club and they put my hand on the desk and he takes like a screwdriver. There's like a staple gun next to it. I'm thinking he's going to like staple my hands or whatever. He takes a screwdriver and takes the end of it, like where the handle is. And that shit hurts because it's cold outside. It's cold in the basement. And he's just whacking each finger until they're like completely black and blue.
Oh my God.
That was like the most pain I've ever felt. Obviously, like I'd been like punched before and smacked because they would smack me because it doesn't leave a mark. So like if they punched me, especially like when the cops were on me and stuff, they didn't want me marked up. So they would smack me. They would come to the office, smack me around, grab me, like choke me by the neck, pick me up and stuff like that. But the screwdriver thing was probably the worst experience physically.
Screwdriver in the basement.
Yeah,
That's
screwdriver in the
fucking-
basement. Everyone loves
You
that
scared
story.
for your life at that?
I don't know what it was. I was never like, I don't know. It's just like my adrenaline was so high. Like you have to be in that moment, you know? Like I didn't go. I think that was the other thing too. I never ran. I never hid, and I earned respect because I didn't go and tell.
Yeah.
Like I didn't put any of them under. I never tried to save myself. Everyone tried to save themselves against me, like my business partner and stuff. But I held true like to the end. Never was going to give up any names because at the end of the day, they looked out for me.
Right.
So what would it benefit me? Okay, I go to jail and then they're after me because I fucking snitched on all of them.
I think deep down inside in your head, you're like, they're fucking my hand up. This is going to be good TV one day.
No,
It's
I
going to be a
wasn't-
good story.
I wasn't thinking about the story at all at that point. I was just trying to live another day. So when I finally go to prison, it was such a relief. Like that first night.
Really?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
There's you were in so many lies from so many different avenues of people, and I heard Jordan Belfort say this. I don't think it was on Wolf Wall Street. I think he said in a podcast or on something, but he said like every time you do something wrong, your in moral compass takes one step down. So first it's like when you're in 7th grade, I would never do drugs. Then you smoke weed, and then weed is a normal. Now, then you try Coke, and then Coke is a normal. And then you just go down this rabbit hole of like every time the line just steps on a little bit and you think that's okay. I'll just do this just a little bit. And you just kept going down the line of like, it was okay to take money from this guy. And then that's the normal. Yeah. So then now you'll take money from this guy because it was so much more closer to what your normal was. And you just went down this fucking rabbit hole of so many lies of things of different avenues. And you were like, it almost was like there was nothing you even could do, but just be in it and just keep trying to throw shit together to make it work, you know?
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it now, I was only going to end up 2 ways. Either me dead, or 3 ways. Me dead, me committing suicide, which is essentially me dead, or going to prison because time heals everything. Yeah. So me getting removed from that situation really changed a lot of things.
Did you think, when you were in the midst of it, like you said you owned it for a year, what point did you literally start to say to yourself, like, I want to go to jail or I want to kill myself? Were there those thoughts or it just happened?
I think there was always like suicidal thoughts,
yeah.
But I wouldn't actually do it. Like there was times I'd be like sitting in my car just like breaking down like in tears because like I like felt so terrible like about the situation. Mm-hmm. Like, and a lot of people in the public like never saw that aspect. I don't really talk about it like out openly about like how bad the mental state was. Cause at that point, the whole town of Danbury is bringing me through the mud. Like, it wasn't until the HBO documentary that anyone really knew the whole story. It was just whatever the News Times put out. Mm-hmm. And they're putting out all this fake shit. Like,
of course,
they're associating the fraud to the club, which wasn't the case at all. They were just putting out whatever just to say whatever. And that, like, had a huge impact on, like, my mental health in that aspect.
Right.
And then seeing all my close friends from high school who I used to take care of, had good relationships with, even, like, ex-girlfriends, whatever, constantly bash me. Every time an article got shared on Facebook, it's all this crazy shit. And then to see it years later, them take it back, because when the article, I mean, HBO came out, they watch it and I would see them post, wow, this definitely changes my perspective and opinion, because the documentary humanized me. Right. Like, it showed me as like a human. But it's kind of interesting, like, everyone's opinion changed just based off an article. You still knew like the me, but just because you heard one statement, that changed everything. Like, I think society as like as a whole on a bigger picture really has to think about like what they're posting and what they're sharing just based off of what one person's saying, because you could like affect someone's life.
So much influence.
There's always two sides to the story, and for a long time you didn't have any platform or anywhere to speak your side of the story. And like you know, if I heard your story and I didn't get to sit and speak with you in here, obviously you had no malintent in this. You didn't want to fucking hurt nobody.
But
You were
that's
just
what's
trying to
so
make
scary
money.
about social media today in general, everything.
Is that people can use
They
your
just
story
curate
against you.
whatever message
Right.
that they want to be known to society and
Oh,
the
they
world.
just want the juicy story.
And that's the whole
Yeah.
problem with social media. That's why fucking Andrew Tate is banned, and that's why he's trying to fight it,
Right.
is because of that.
Right.
Because they just cancel Donald Trump or they cancel whoever it is.
Well, they
you
want
know?
to paint you as the
Some
scumbag.
stuff's
'cause
cut
like-
and dry. Like if someone kills someone, like look at the Jeffrey Dahmer thing,
Yeah.
right? Like that's cut and dry. Like
But
you
he
could.
wasn't such a bad guy. He
Oh,
just wanted
yeah,
to
he
have
was.
fun.
He just want to
take
give
some
you a
pictures.
drink. But like that's cut and dry. Like if someone like if there's a rape thing or whatever,
Yeah.
like there's very specific things, you know, the facts, that and that. I think a story like mine should have been allowed to play out with all the facts, like from both sides. That's what can ruin a reputation. Because at that point, when all that stuff came out, my rep's already brought through the mud. What happens if I was innocent at trial? All that shit is out there at that point. It's not like a cut and dry thing.
Yeah.
So
And it never goes away.
it never goes away. And I think that's at that point, like I knew my life was forever going to be changed. Like the second I got arrested and stuff, because at that point, all my dirty laundry's out there. And that was like one of my contributing factors to why I quit my job like this past year, like in August. Because I'm thinking two things. One, do I really want to work in retail for the rest of my life? And two, like this is always going to be a part of me. There's no letting it go. Like it's always going to follow me. It's always going to come up in relationships. Like as much as I want to hide it, and I feel like the last couple of years I was just like letting it sit idle. I wasn't embracing it. Yeah, I got a couple documentaries and I would promote them like when they came about, but I wasn't necessarily owning it. It wasn't my persona. So the second I jumped into making it my persona and making it my life and kind of like making it into entertainment, I think like so many different doors opened up and things like started to change for me in a positive way.
Yeah, the story's not over.
Yeah, the story's not over.
That's
You try to put it to the side for a couple years, and then you end up coming back to it. Now you're saying?
Yeah, so like the first year I got out, I was focused on like selling the story, this and that. It's very slow going in the entertainment business. And like the book things not happening, this and that. So I devoted time to working on me. I got a good job, worked my way up to a manager, rebuilt my credit, got a car in my name, got an apartment, became so self-efficient. And then when all those things, it's actually funny, the day I got my own car in my name, that night HBO hit me up.
That's
About doing the documentary. And then there was another year during COVID and stuff, because the documentary is being made, I was just so focused on work. I was pouring my heart and soul into Whole Foods, which is where I was working.
Yep.
And then the documentary came out and I was still working for Whole Foods, but it didn't like catapult me to like a new platform or anything, the documentary. It just came out and I did a couple more interviews, but I wasn't chasing after it. We were still working behind the scenes to make a pitch for a bigger thing, because we always believed it needed to be more than an hour and like a TV series. Then I do the Vice thing, the Vice documentary. That does a couple million views, but, you know, nothing major. And then this year when, you know, I'm sitting at work and I'm like, this is going really slow and I need to make the decision here if I'm going to put fuel on the fire or I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and like living like this boring life that I was like already getting bored of. And I'm like, that's not me. Like I went through all this crazy shit. I did all this shit at a very young age. Like I need to get back to that, like that excitement. I found myself living like this 9-to-5 life. I was putting on weight again. I wasn't hitting the gym again. And I was getting into like, I wasn't happy. So as soon as I started changing, I've been in the gym ever since I quit my job.
Yeah. What sparked you to quit the job? I got to know.
Hold up. Before I have to add, this can be deleted if we need to. Did you work at the Danbury, the Whole Foods across the street from the Danbury Mall?
So that's where I started as a cook. And
That's crazy. I used to go there every fucking day.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I started there as a cook, worked my way up to assistant manager, and then I got promoted at a new Long Island store to be team leader in end of 2021. Then came back as manager, the head manager this year. And I ended up making like $32 an hour. With overtime, you make over $100K, and which you wouldn't expect from a grocery store.
Right.
But I was just like busting my ass every day for a company that like could give
Slaving,
two
dude.
shits about me.
Slaving.
And I'm like, okay, if I put that same work ethic into me, into driving my story, what could happen? And TikTok is helping me sell my story right now, because now there's a high demand to have on paper 25 million views in this period of time, all these viral videos.
Attention is the new oil, bro.
Exactly. So that's helping me. Whereas like I didn't have that over the last couple of years. Now I do. Now I have something to bring to the table. And it's like, listen, this story is huge. Like, people are interested. People like it. Let's do something. So now it brought like all the pieces together.
So how's it happen? You go into work one day, you're stocking shelves, and you're like, fuck this, I quit.
So my job was like very high paced. I did prepared foods. So I was like the hardest worker in the room.
Of course it was fucking high paced. That's who you are.
Yeah. Like I'm like, a lot of people don't know this about me, but like I was always a hard worker. During the clubs, like I would stay up all night if we had a show the next day. I was cleaning it, one, because I had no money to pay someone, but I was cleaning it. I was cleaning the bathrooms. I was doing everything. Like I'm insanely hands-on, extremely hardworking, and no one really saw that side of me unless like they really genuinely knew me, because the papers make me to sound like this like rich snobby kid that was lazy as shit.
It does do that.
I know, but my work ethic was like next level, and I put that into Whole Foods, and that was my all. Like I saw myself going all the way to the top, and it was like a definitely very life-changing decision to throw that all out to the side.
Yeah, you gotta have some balls, man.
Yeah, and I always took risks, so why not take this one? And retail is always going to be there. Right. If I took the risk to not do TikTok, a couple things were going through my mind. One, I knew I couldn't work there and talk about prison and stories and crazy shit and me fucking girls or whatever on social media, put it out there, and still work in this corporate job. The two weren't going to coincide. And number two, if it didn't work out, say my views didn't go anywhere, followers didn't go anywhere, whatever, I could go back to retail. Maybe not Whole Foods. I could go anywhere though.
Yeah, as long as you're willing to work hard, there's a million fucking businesses.
Work my way up. It didn't matter. So that was my decision. And, you know, I just jumped into it. When I commit to something, I'm all in. Relationship, business, anything. If it's in my mind to do,
you're doing it.
I'm doing it.
So you tell your boss you're quitting. Is he like, what? Are you fucking joking?
He was shocked. So actually at the time, and I think this is what I told myself to really get me to quit, I was interviewing for an MTV show. They wanted me on like some new dating show type thing, with people with like sketchy or not sketchy, like colorful backgrounds. So I was doing the interview, and they were like, I got to like a later round in it, and they were like, you would have to be able to go out of the country for work to film this. It was in like a tropical island or whatever in October. And so one, I had just gotten my passport back from the court. So I'm thinking in my head, okay, this is happening for a reason. I've got my passport back. I'm able to do it. I'm off probation. And then two, I'm just thinking, okay, like they hit me up because they saw my TikTok. So I'm like, okay, this is meant to be. So I used that as my reason for I'm quitting. I said, listen, I got this opportunity to do this MTV show. Well, I never ended up hearing back from the MTV show, but at the same time, that was a blessing because I couldn't focus on the time I needed to put into my social media if I did the show.
Right.
And now I have offers for other shows because the casting directors see the TikTok. That's what they're looking for. And that small payout would have affected my long-term goal. Like I didn't need to be on a dating show. One, I didn't even look the part at that point to go on a dating show, but you know, it's just life happens the way it happens.
Yeah.
But that definitely helped me quit too, because that put in my mind like, okay, I need to leave this place because I have this opportunity.
That's crazy how that all pans out. Now, another thing I want to talk about is, so you get indicted, you get charged with all these charges, you go to jail. Now, you still owed money. That doesn't just go away. You have to pay restitution. How does that work?
So you get court-ordered restitution. You can't declare bankruptcy on it. The debt's good for like 20 years. Like it's a 20-year judgment. And I think they have an option to renew. I don't know how that works. While I was on probation, I was paying $1,000 a month. Now it's just based off of my income. As soon as probation ends, it falls off criminally. Then it's just civilly. They can go after you civilly. Whereas in probation, if you don't pay, you could go back to jail.
Okay.
Because that's a condition of release. So all the conditions they gave me a part of supervised release and the second year off supervised release, those rules don't apply anymore. So that is something like I'm working towards paying. Like I pay a percentage of my income. My income's obviously a lot lower now that I left Whole Foods, but my goal is I get one big deal, give it to the lawyer, and then the lawyer handles it from there, either negotiates down or whatever they can do to wipe it up. But that's the game plan.
Does it come with interest?
No interest on it.
Okay, so what's the nut?
So the total nut was like $480,000.
Damn. Wow.
And then plus there's the street money that's still owed out on the street.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Well, which one are you more scared about not paying?
I think so. The street one is not like I don't think it's like, from my perspective, I have to pay. I think it got written off. But I think it's more like that's the right thing to do.
Right.
So some of that money is like my dad's money that he put in. Obviously, my dad's not coming after me. Another one is some other friends and stuff that I never threw them under. But we're talking about almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
Nothing's really happened, in 10 years, but I still communicate with them. And there's that mutual respect that I didn't throw any of them under the bus. But like, I want to be able to get to the point where I could go up to them and say, hey, thank you. Here you go. Like, I appreciate it. I know the people that looked out for me. And I'm not going to forget that.
Good man, bro.
And like now some people hate on me on Facebook, like from Danbury. All my hate on social media comes from Danbury people for the most part. Typical hate like all around the world of like stupid prison comments or whatever. But the real hate, like someone wrote on my post the other day when I posted my analytics for TikTok, they were like, you should be taking care of all the people you screwed over instead of monetizing this and that. They don't get the bigger picture of what I'm trying to do to build it. Like if I posted on my Facebook page an image that I did 20 million views in a month or whatever, that's just to drive attention to my story. Right. That's not me bragging about anything or doing anything like that. That's me. That's marketing.
It's working the machine.
It's working the machine to get the bigger picture, and I'm playing the long game. They're small-minded and they're not understanding it. It's not like I just have the money right now to pay everyone back.
Don't forget, if you don't have haters, you're not doing anything right.
You need to have haters. I'm a big believer. Like, one, there's no such thing as bad press, and then two, you have to have haters.
Yeah. Well,
Were you the only one that went to jail?
Yeah, so my business partner ratted on me all the way. Like, he stayed loyal. So we made a deal. When the investigation was started, I said, listen, his name's John. I'll take all the blame for it, but you just stay in my corner. That's all I want from you. Just stay in my corner. Don't go against me. But I'll say I did everything. You had nothing to do with it.
Took the out on that?
Because the guy was going to college. I didn't want to screw anything up, and I understood, I was like, okay, I was the center of this, whatever. So we had that arrangement. 3 days before the trial, he decides to cop a plea. And because they were threatening him or whatever, but they weren't going to charge him. That's what the feds do. They were going to investors saying they were going to indict them on charges unless they testified.
How old was he?
He was my age.
Oh, same.
And you're still friends with this guy or not?
No, we talk occasionally on Facebook and stuff. He declined to do the HBO documentary and stuff, but he's a fucking rat. No matter what documentary he does, it's always going to portray him as the close friend that turned on me. Yeah. And I stayed loyal to him to the end. There's nothing he could do.
Fuck you, John.
Yeah, I mean, so he was saying to me like, oh, they weren't offering enough money for me to do it. I'm going to wait for the right deal. But it's like, that was my producer tells me this all the time. Him turning it down, that was like his chance to get into the spotlight. And the guy turned it down. And I get his perspective. He went to college. He's in business, whatever. And he'll never own this situation like the way I have to own it. And that's what makes us, or me, very unique and different. But he turned on me right before the trial, did a plea to get probation on a state charge for lying. So he got off scot-clean, and his restitution was only $30,000.
Wow.
Which didn't make any sense. How are we equal partners and his restitution's only $30,000?
Yours is 100 times that and some.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. But so he got the perks of everything, the artist, the cars, the clothing, everything, and no repercussions whatsoever.
So Jordan Belfort is like really your idol.
No,
even the way
he's a fucking snitch.
No,
too. He snitched on everyone.
Yo, my sales director fucking hates him.
The
like when I talk
snitch.
about him, he can't stand him.
He saved himself, man. He threw everyone under. He got less. He only got 4 years in prison for $110 million. The guy posts about like owning all these houses, cars, all this shit, and he still owes all the money. He's only paid like $10 million.
His net worth on Google, I think it says negative $100 million still.
Yeah,
literally says
the guy's got
million.
money. Like he knows how to play the game. He's got money overseas and stuff.
Biggest scumbag
If you
in the
Google
world.
him in the news, there's all these things about the government bringing him to court and stuff to try to get money from him after all these years. He fights that shit. That's so different from like my case.
Yeah.
But people don't look at that aspect of it or whatever.
Nobody can see it that deep.
Yeah, no one's gonna see it that deep.
May I jump in for?
Go ahead.
So
Bryce is.
He loves jumping in.
Yeah, Ian.
Where's Damon John?
Give him
$480,000
$480,000.
Yo, who is this guy right now? Are you part of the podcast, bro?
David John is ass.
Nah, I'm lucky to be in the room with you guys because it's a unique scenario here. It has to be said that everybody thinks their story is really cool, or that they deserve to be on a TV show. And I think this is an interesting scenario because I have all three of you in the room, and all three of you have unique stories. And what people don't really understand about social media is that, like, it's not the way to pop is not only to like have a cool video doing something cool. You actually have to have depth to your authentic story. And you guys are all unique individually in that. But Ian, you owe $480,000 in restitution, and you always say online that your plan is to sell your rights to your story in order to pay it back. So, like, can you talk about like what would be your perfect picture of success as far as like your story being, you know, your story? Who would play you in a movie?
So the goal is obviously sell the story, get X amount of dollars, pay everyone back, and then that chapter closes there. And then I could then use that platform to make money for myself. Like at that point, like once the money's paid off, then I could start like profiting heavier, whatever it is with my life, whatever direction I go in. I see kind of myself getting into public speaking, talking to schools and colleges, because that's where my story is going to resonate with the most. And then playing me in a TV show or movie. Honestly, I was thinking kind of like Miles Teller, because he's still kind of like young.
Dude,
and he looks like me a little bit.
Exactly who I was going to say.
And you would have to have two characters.
Crazy.
You need younger Ian, like a chubby younger Ian, and then he would be like high school Ian, because he does play
what's his
younger
name
roles.
From Superbad.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill.
He's older now.
Yeah,
All
it'd be
right.
tough.
Yeah.
He's mad skinny.
So
But the guy
OG
from
Jonah
the kid
Hill.
from 13 Reasons Why would be good too. He's kind of got like that perspective. Put
I
some
don't know that
glasses
one.
on him or something.
What's the title?
So my title was The Party's Over, because that's what I've been riding with, because that's what the judge said. So it's like literally my whole persona is The Party's Over, nightclub owner at 18, federal inmate at 21. But I know like the show they're pitching right now is in the pitch deck, because you put together like this whole elaborate slideshow, pitch deck and everything. It's Teenage Ponzi. That's like one of the ones Vice used. Obviously, that's all subject to change. But I see it as like The Party's Over, but they probably won't use that because HBO used that name.
Okay. Listen, I need you to promise that if it goes to the big screen,
You guys are
I get to
getting
bash
tickets?
your fingers with the screwdriver.
You're bashing the fingers.
I want to be that guy.
You want a cameo?
I need to.
Okay.
Where's the fucking screwdriver? You owe me money,
No,
motherfucker.
we're gonna have Bryce do it.
Okay, maybe Bryce.
I couldn't get away with that. Yo, you've always had a knack for like being involved in the entertainment industry, not only with throwing concerts, but actually pitching with producers and talking to news outlets and talking to TV shows and production and things like that. So for someone who does have a story, what's it like mixing it up? What's it like being on set with HBO directors? What's it like pitching your story to potentially be sold to Netflix? Like, can you talk about that side of the entertainment industry?
And the big artists that you bump shoulders with. I mean, you must have some rapport with some of these guys. They know you.
So to me, and I learned this at a young age because I get it from my dad. My dad owns a catering company, and I didn't realize the caliber of his company until I got older. He would come home and he'd be like, yeah, I was hanging out with like this famous pop star last night. And I'm like, okay. And he shows me a picture. It's fucking Hillary Duff. And I was obsessed with Hillary Duff at one point. Like, she was my idol. I had a
think we all
poster.
were back in the day.
And then he would start talking about all the artists he was working with. He did like 50 Cent's like big summer bash in the Bronx.
What?
He did all the Harry Potter premieres. I got to go to the premiere of the movie for the Goblet of Fire in New York City, met the cast, got pictures with them.
Bro,
Yeah.
what the
He
fuck?
catered for
That's
Hillary
crazy.
Clinton, did the Rolling Stones, knows Keith Richards, like all this crazy shit. But he's just so nonchalant about it. But I'm a teenager, like I'm thinking, wow, this is the coolest fucking thing in the world. Big celebrities. And when I finally started hanging out with the celebrities, I understood what he meant, because they're just like normal people. Some are fucking dicks. Like some of these DJs, and especially the rap stars. I don't really have anything nice to say about the rap stars. They were
Then say it.
Big
I want to hear
What about
some
50?
shit.
Did you meet 50
I
at
didn't
all?
meet 50.
Okay.
Big Sean was the nicest rapper I ever worked with.
Wow.
Tyga's a fucking prick. I paid 40 grand for him, and the man wouldn't even give me a handshake. He's short as shit too, like really short.
Fuck short
He's
people.
probably
Big man him.
he's probably shorter than Kylie Jenner, honestly. So no wonder the relationship didn't work out. But Big Sean was the nicest. 21 Savage was a prick too. Ray Shremmerd was all right. He was okay. YG was another asshole too.
I mean, Wiz didn't even show up.
Oh, well, that's a different story. We didn't even end up booking him.
Oh.
And Chief Keef didn't show up, so I have no regard for Chief Keef.
Yeah, it's not a surprise.
But the DJs are super nice. Like Steve Aoki, the nicest man I've ever met in my life. super chill, down to earth. He went out of his way to meet me. He was like, "Who's the owner of this place? This is awesome." Took pictures. He did that picture, him hanging upside down. Super nice. Same with Blau. Those were like the 2 nicest ones. Adventure Club was kind of pricks, or one of them was, the other one wasn't. Cash was super cool with. And I was just like hanging out with these guys. We would bring them to the hotels. We would drive with them in their cars. We would have dinner with them. And it wasn't like I wasn't obsessed with flexing that. Like the pictures I have with these artists are slim to none. Like I have a couple pictures like in the moment with like certain celebrities, but when you're hanging out with them, it's not even on your mind. Like you're just living in the moment.
Are you so you're not using that clout to like, you're young, you're not using that to like get laid and be like calling chicks and like, yo, we're going to get lunch with laid back Luke. Like, what are you doing?
At that time, girls were like hooking up with me because they wanted free concert tickets. So they were like sending nudes in on Snapchat or doing this and that. They just wanted concert tickets. And because I'm looking at photos now, I was fucking ugly. Like I'm fucking fat. And I'm like, how did I get girls? But it's just because of the club. If I look like the way I do now, like when I own the club, it's over. Like me and my friends talk about all this all the time.
Slanging dick.
Yeah, I was like so not confident at all, which is surprising because I owned a club. I was confident in certain ways, like in the moment, but I couldn't talk to girls. Like it wasn't my thing. That's not what I was good at.
Right.
So I think when I started dealing with like HBO and dealing with streaming sites and stuff, like it's a lot less nonchalant. It's more, whatever the word is, but it's like felt more comfortable because I'm exposed to that environment. And like when the HBO doc came out, I had a lot of celebrities slide into my DMs, just saying, "Hey, I watched the doc. Like this is awesome." When you're hanging out with, like, that's what my life is going to become. So you kind of got to be like, it is what it is. They're normal people too.
Right. I mean,
so
you got to treat everyone like that. I think it's so weird when you see like a famous person and people go crazy. Like we just had it. Who were we?
Yeah.
We were eating dinner at the fucking steakhouse. And
Chaz Palminteri.
Chaz Palminteri's there.
Yeah.
Some fucking weirdo. Chaz Palminteri's
who is
walking
it?
out.
Who's
He wrote the
Chaz?
Bronx Tale.
I never saw it.
Never
that's
seen the Bronx
That's
Tale?
the second time in a week someone told me to go watch the Bronx Tale.
Bro,
That's
what?
You never
weird.
seen a
That's-
Bronx Tale?
No, that's a
Classic.
sign. I gotta go watch.
With-
that.
Okay,
with,
so anyway, it's
Robert
like
De Niro?
Jesus is sitting at this fucking place with us,
Yeah.
and some guy walks up with a copy of the Bible, and he's like, "Can you sign this?"
Did he
Like,
sign it?
No, he was like, "Get the fuck out of my face!"
Wow.
What a weird thing to
But
do.
that's like what Damon John said about you guys. Like it was, you guys went out and took a risk to go and talk to him
Yeah,
like
'cause
normal
they're just
people.
people.
You know, it's not like you were a fan girling or whatever. It's like,
Right.
yo, we need you. Like you took a
Those
risk.
people
with that.
hate to get idolized because
Yeah.
they just want to be normal people.
It's fucking
at the end of the day,
weird.
you know, and that's so we got Damon John on until he sharked us in the interview. But
What do you mean he sharked you?
Oh, dude, he fucking.
did you watch the beginning when he was just?
I watched
shitting
something on
us?
YouTube. Yeah, I know in the beginning he was like, "Why did I do this podcast? you
Bro,
guys
he
got
was
like no."
just roasting us.
asshole was sweating when he said that.
Yeah,
nearly
I thought the
fucking
Bryce
pinched
scene
one
was
up.
hilarious when he was calling out Bryce.
When he called out
Yeah,
Bryce.
he's like, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
Classic. Don't you think that he was just dogging us because it made sense? Because our show was so unknown at that point that everyone watching is thinking, how did these guys get him on? And he addressed it immediately.
Dude, I think we had 100 subscribers at the time.
Yeah.
We went
Like
from 100 to
maybe a few
7K.
hundred.
But then what he said at the end was good about talking about how he wanted to give a guy like you guys the chance,
Yeah.
like that as his job as like an entrepreneur and
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah,
which
to
was
that
give
was
back.
his whole thing on Shark Tank. That was
Right.
the best
Yeah.
comeback line. Tony said it.
and
So,
he hopes that he was like the least important person on your show.
yeah,
Yeah.
So-
he said that.
Yeah, he's a real player. Also, now that I know you're a fan, we appreciate that. No, but he's a real one for that. Like to say shit like that and give us that opportunity. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know what people bring up all the time? The moment in the show. You referenced a couple that people always reference, but the people always reference the moment when he tells George, the manager, to give him 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
That's
He
great.
said,
yeah.
no, not 2 more minutes, 10 more. Everyone says that is indicative of the fact that you guys. He roasted you and then proceeded to give the most in-depth interview.
Absolutely roasted us.
Bro,
Yeah.
it's still he has the most clips. He has the most views from our clips.
Right.
Well, because he said he doesn't
Yeah,
really
the
do
shorts.
many podcasts too.
Right.
So that was good that you guys did that.
Let's talk about the scumbags in jail.
Scumbags.
I
In
was
jail.
I remember hearing something about like the Jewish pedophiles.
You
Oh, there's a lot of those.
Why?
Yeah, so I was.
What is that?
I was when I was in the shoe in Danbury. I had a bunkmate who was like this white guy, Jewish guy, who looked like he was 19, but he was really 40. Like this guy did not age well at all, and he was there for a sex crime. And he had a lot of pull. He was like the head Jew on the compound.
How do you have pull as a sex offender? I thought those people get treated like they should.
In the lows, you don't really want to. So guys in the lows don't want to touch the sex offenders or whatever because they don't want to leave the low. Like these hard ass criminals that have gotten 20-year sentences that work their way down to a low, they're not going to throw that out the window. They could talk all the shit they want in the world about this and that, gangs, whatever. They're not giving up their spot at the low. Maybe some will, but the majority of them won't.
And low is low security prison.
Then there's minimum, the camps, but sex offenders can't get into camps. So.
Well, some of them do.
Yeah.
They
no,
sneak
not
right into little kids' camps.
Oh my God. Okay. So
I had to. Come on.
At the Danbury prison, it's very sex offender friendly. So there's a lot of sex offenders. And also the Jews run pretty much any compound.
What?
They have Otisville, the camp where like Billy McFarland went, where Cohen went from Trump's crew, Jewish. You have pull. A lot of it's because the rabbis have so much pull. The rabbis are connected to the governors. They're connected to government, whatever. They can get whatever they need. You know, a good rabbi, you can get anything you need. Like me and my dad were looking into saying like I had a bat mitzvah or anything like that because his side of the family is Jewish, just so I can get pulled to like move me around to different prisons and stuff. You make a donation to a certain rabbi, they call the prison. It's very political. Yeah.
Where's Kanye at? Where's Kanye at right now?
Anyways, so
What the fuck?
Yo, we'll get canceled if we say anything like that.
That's why I'm not saying anything.
You can't talk about reality?
nah,
You can't.
you
Jews run the fucking world.
They do.
They really do.
They really do. If you could be a sex offender and still a respected Jew in that prison because they're not fucking with the Jews.
I thought you was 16.
So, anyways, this guy who I'm in the cell with, I didn't know he was a sex offender at first because all the other inmates were talking to him like he was cool. Like everything was good. Like in the shoe, these hardened guys, but the way they would do it is the Jews had pulled to getting anything, cell phones, food. So they would take care of these guys to earn like respect or whatever.
And are these guys like Jewish, like with the curls and
Everything. They got the yarmulke on and stuff. It's religion is what they don't play around with in prison. If you're religious, they're going to honor that because that's in breaching on your right. You know, you could be a Jeffrey Dahmer and you say you want to practice, like in the show, they got him baptized. They do not play with that.
Yeah.
So religion is not something that gets messed with.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
this guy, his name was Sammy, and he was bunked up with me. And eventually I find out, like, because we're together all the 24 hours a day for X amount of time, he tells me the whole story of why he was under investigation. And he had the rabbi smuggling him in kosher meats, electronics inside the meats, all this outside food. His mom and dad would bake like a nice Jewish spread and he would bring it in because however they smuggled it in, the guy was able to bring it in. So once they eventually found out, they put them both under investigation. It was crazy.
That's nutty, dude.
Yep.
Smuggling stuff into prison, I still don't understand.
It's
like,
a whole
how
guards
this-
are making thousands of dollars.
Oh, so they're in. Okay.
Oh, in the lows, the guards are in on it. A guard can get like $5,000 for a cell phone. So imagine you're smuggling in a phone, right? You can get it in to make a quick $5,000.
And they're probably not doing heavy investigation on the guards.
No,
because-
now it's more or less coming out. Like you read a lot of articles about guards being charged in these things now. But the biggest issue now is guards sleeping with inmates. That is running rampant.
Wait, female guards are like dudes on dudes?
So men sleeping with women and then female guards sleeping with men. So that's like a big thing. And when I was in the shoe in Danbury, there was like 3 different guys under investigation for sleeping with female staff.
I mean, when you're a prison guard. So my ex-girlfriend, her father used to work at Greenhaven, and you like if that's your life, that's your job. You're there for 12 hours a day. You pick up all the inmates' mentalities and lifestyles and thought processes because you're inside the walls just like they are.
Yeah.
Even though you have on a badge and you're doing whatever, you're still in those cement walls. You're still with criminals all the goddamn time. And just, I mean, I'm not surprised if I was making $1,000 a week and you tell me $5,000 to bring in a cell phone.
I mean, there was one woman counselor, case manager, who her husband was a guard at that same prison, and she was sleeping with inmates. So it just
Like inmates, like multiple.
yeah.
And the inmates get in trouble, or does this bitch?
So the inmate will get in trouble, just a prison policy, but they can't get charged criminally. But they still investigate because you're not supposed to be doing that. So that's just like a prison charge. They call it like a shot. So they lock you up under investigation. It's so hard to prove it though because you need both of them to admit that it was done. But the guard itself could get charged criminally. You read about that a lot.
What's your favorite prison movie?
Prison, like a movie about prison.
Yours.
I would say Con Air.
That's yet to come out.
Fucking
Con Air.
Con Air.
Wow.
I just did a post about Con Air and it did 1 million views the other day telling my Con Air story because I wrote on Con Air. But that's I've watched that movie 100 times.
You rode on Con Air?
Mm-hmm. It's not
You
like
were
the movie
transferred
whatsoever.
By plane?
Transferred by plane. It was this old plane from probably the fucking 80s. So the old commercial planes, when they get decommissioned or whatever, go to the U.S. Marshal Service.
This doesn't work that well. Let's load it with prisoners.
There was duct tape on the fucking wings.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
What
there was
in
duct
the
tape
world?
on the wings.
Yo.
So we were at the Westchester Airport or whatever that's called. There's a military base near there or something like that. That's where you get picked up on. The whole airport is surrounded by U.S. Marshals and M16s and shit. The marshals on the plane all have guns, but they're in like these fingerprinted like lock-sealed cases. They're like booby trapped on them. It's like kind of crazy. So like an inmate can't get into it. You're chained to the seat. If that plane goes down, you're fucked. Like
You're just
you're
dead.
you're dead.
And they're old ass planes. You said it's
Old
from the
planes
80s?
and even the marshals, they're like ready to retire. They're like all
They put them on like, yeah, if
No,
they die, it doesn't really
they're
matter.
like all overweight. Like there wasn't one skinny U.S. Marshal on that plane. Like the woman, and they're sitting there like eating fast food, and they're like chowing down on all this shit, and they're like eating like slobs and all this.
Did you say you were chained to a seat on a plane?
Yeah, you're chained to it. You're shackled,
In case he
chained. You
tries
got-
to run away.
You got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you're snacking on while the guards are eating fried chicken. And then they put the woman inmates in the front of the plane, so you can't like talk to them or whatever. You get in trouble
Can't
if you
fuck
talk to
them
them.
up
Yeah.
there in the cockpit.
So that was my experience on Con Air.
Did you ever experience or hear of somebody getting pregnant while they were in prison?
I heard of a guard getting pregnant. I don't know if it was true. She was actually pregnant. Rumors were saying that she got pregnant from an inmate. But
Does the kid do time?
I don't know.
Does the kid have
Does
to
the
finish
kid-
the sentence with daddy?
No, but like that's the type of shit that you hear about, you know?
Oh my god.
Dude, what a crazy fucking story.
I don't know.
How much time are we at? We're like an hour 40. Wow, really?
We got a lot of goodies, or you guys want to keep it rolling?
Okay, one more thing, and then whatever you guys want to do. But unless everyone wants to wrap it up, you guys want to wrap it
Go
up?
ahead. No.
No, let's do it.
Ian, like, did you just go on like what it's like, you know, being basically in Hollywood, handling HBO, handling Vice, like just a little bit? I don't know. I don't think you really thoroughly touched on it. Have you been in meetings with Netflix executives?
So I personally never go to the meetings. I have like a producer that does everything. So like basically I signed like an agreement. It's called a shopping agreement with this producer who believed in my stories since day one. So like the ball's in her court. She's been working on this since 2019 when I got out. She actually lives in the town over from me, and her son was friends with my brother. And this woman knows me better than anyone else. Like knows the story, knows all the characters. She's the only person on this earth that can connect all the dots because she studied it. So she is the one that pitches it to studios. She has all the contacts. She just teamed up with another production team, which is a pretty big production team, who has a deal with Audible and Amazon, and another deal with Warner Brothers or something like that. And so they're teamed up, and they're now bringing it to major studios, who then once a studio signs on, will bring it to the streaming sites. So we're super far along in the process now where we're actually pitching, and we have like the whole pitch deck and everything. And what we're doing is we're starting with a documentary series, 6 to 8 episodes, like an hour long each. And then from there, we want to turn that into like an unscripted or scripted TV series, where you can I kind of see it like, you guys ever watch Power?
I have.
So kind of like that, where, cause you could spin this off. Like you can incorporate drugs into the club. Like this idea of a teenager owning a nightclub. You can say like, I'm selling drugs. I'm doing like all this different shit.
Right, you spice it up.
You spice it up. Like it could really, like what they did with Orange is the New Black. I see that happening. And then you have the aspect of prison. Like, you have all this crazy shit that you could fluff up.
Right.
But the main focus now, do the docuseries, like kind of like what Anna Delvey did, Tinder Swindler, on like a major platform, blow that up, and then from there turn it into something else. But we're very close to that. Like, in their eyes, they envision a deal happening like either before the new year or after the new year.
Wow.
That's how.
awesome.
But this is 3 years in the making. It took this long just to get here. A lot of no's too. Like, that's the one thing in the industry that's so
Hollywood.
important.
I mean, there's no doubt your story is fucking wild.
But it's all about timing. So like, we've had meetings with like huge companies, like, and even big actors, like major companies, and they're like, we love the story, but our plate's full. Like, you could have a meeting with Adam Sandler tomorrow and he could love it and fall in love with it or whatever. But if he has his films planned out for the next 2 years, it's not happening.
Right.
Wolf of Wall Street, in his book, he puts on saying that the rights to the film or whatever got sold years before, but it just kept getting put on the back burner. He didn't think it was going to happen. And then Leo called him one day and said, hey, we're going forward. Yep. Once it's rolling, it happens fast. But to get there, very slow. HBO, when we signed on, took another 6 to 8 months before we even started filming. And that was a smaller thing. So it's a waiting game. If you want it to
pop, you just have to tell them that on the inside, you've always felt like a woman. And then instantly it'll go to fucking to the moon.
But
all they want to know is you want to tuck your dick in, and Hollywood loves it.
That's why the TikTok is great though, because it puts that fire on it, you know, because then it's like, okay, now there's the interest.
Yeah.
It's not like we have to be slow on it. It's like, okay, this is popular now. Like, there's an interest, let's run with it. So we put those stats in like the pitch deck and stuff.
Favorite scene from Wolf of Wall Street? Probably close on it.
Favorite scene from the Wolf of Wall Street? I really liked all of his scenes with the FBI agent, because I think like that's so close. Yeah, like throwing the money at him, throwing the lobster at him. I really like that, and I like just like the ending when he like gets like arrested by the FBI and turns his life around. Like, snitch or not, I like the point where he turned a negative situation into a positive, which is like what I stand for. Being able to tell his story to get him, like, he told his story, it blew up, and now he's in whatever business he's doing. So that's like the same path I'm on right now.
You've gone through so many aspects of business and life and prison. There's so many things that you've done in 5 years that people won't do in their entire lifetime.
Facts.
So it's kind of hard to answer, and it's also kind of cliche, but what lesson have you learned from it? What's your biggest takeaway? What has changed you the most?
This motherfucker just stole my question. What? Who the fuck are you?
Go ahead, ask it then. Finish it out.
I think I'll ask it. What he said.
Wow. That's fun.
Go ahead. What's your lesson?
So my lesson, or what I learned, was just always being honest. Like, in business, I think that's like a really key component. My downfall, like, I could have chased popularity all I wanted, but I needed to be honest. So I think you really just need to be honest, especially in those situations. And so that's like another takeaway from my story that I want to like tell kids about, is like that danger of having unguided ambition. Like, I had all the ambition in the world. I could have been a success story, but I wasn't. And like, I just feel like I needed some direction. At that point, I didn't have it. So I think if my story shows anything to anyone, like, you can have dreams and you can have the ability to reach those dreams, but it just needs to be directed in like a positive way, and you have to have control over it. And my story shows the dangers of what happens when that doesn't happen, when you're not honest, when you have a plan and the plan doesn't work and you go to do things to try to fix that plan. So it's like a cautionary tale in that sense for a teenager, because you have all these stories of the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Snapchat guys, whatever, the success stories, but you don't know the stories of like the failure aspects and what happens when it goes terribly wrong. And I think that's what my story stands for.
And
the terribly
like
wrong
you said,
aspect.
you never had malintent. You just didn't have guidance.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Well, dude, thanks for coming on. That was fucking
that was fun.
An amazing story. I can't wait to see you on the big screen.